Halo Tan,
Hi, Ekky.
halo Bertha. Sorry ya for the waiting.
No worries. Ah,
Hi.
uh,
Halo.
Hey, Dan.
I've joined with two accounts because my computer is slow when I'm sharing the screen. So I'm on iPad and on the computer. So I wanted to
Okay.
try at the screen before we start, if that's possible. See if it
Yeah.
works.
Do you want to try sharing?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Thank you.
Hello everybody. Let's wait for another 5 minutes ya for the technical briefing. That works fine.
Yeah, okay, cool. Full screen. Yeah, okay.
What about you, Bertha?
Yeah, can I just try? Because I'm on a Mac, so sometimes it works and sometimes
Okay.
it doesn't work. Let me just make sure
Stop share.
the keynote. Okay, are you still okay?
Okay.
Share. Okay. Are you able to
Nice.
see?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Any of you plan to have the audio one or just the visual? Okay.
Nope.
Only. Okay. Okay. So we can start now.
Okay, stop share.
Okay. Okay. Let me share the. Okay. Great. Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody, welcome to webinar Fun Culture in Southeast Asia. And today I'll be your host until about 3 p.m. And luckily we have the same time zone with Thailand and Sarawak, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Okay. And this webinar is hosted by Film Department at Binus University in Alam Sutra Campus. And before we begin, I will, as usual, this is the webinar rules for the students. Yeah. Please rename your name itu program or study program name and then name atau or kode dosen ya, like for example film Ekky Imanjaya di something something. And then please write your questions or comments in the chat box. And if it's interesting or if you want uh, to talk directly, please just unmute yourself. And then we will have group photos in the end of the session. And then exit tickets, that is important for the students. Yeah, exit tickets will be provided after the group photo session. So please stay until the end. If you don't don't fill in for exit ticket, so no SAT points and no international experience points. Okay, that's the rules as usual. First, let me give the context for particularly for the students here. Today we will discuss about fan culture in Southeast Asia. You know anything about fan culture? What is fan culture about? What will we discuss? Do you have any idea? Just raise your hand. Any idea? Hello? Because everybody is a fan for anything, right? I just want to know. Are you a fan of, like, for example, K-pop group, boy band, or for example, or movie star? Please write down your in the chat box. What is you are the biggest fan of who or what band or what musician? Please, I want to know. Come on. Usually this is after lunch, so people is not. Michael Jackson. Oh, Michael Jackson. Okay, Pixar movies. Yeah, fan culture is a fandom, but yeah, you are right. And then Isyana Saraswati. Whoa, Isyana Saraswati, the metal girl. Kendrick Lamar. Okay. Anime. What kind of anime? What kind of anime? Like One Piece, Dragon Ball, or from my age, Photos 5 or something. Okay. Junji Ito, Oshinoko. Okay. Okay, my second question will be, what is the craziest thing you do as a fan? Okay, the second. Peter Pan ungu. Okay. ST12. What is the craziest thing you do for as a fan? Did you go to the concert with no money and then you have to go for the ojol, ojol. I mean to have a debt or something. Spend money, make my own merch of it. Wait, it's the piracy. Make your own merch. Make a fan art. Okay, attend their concert, and then spend money on merch. Okay, making fanfic, buying countless merch. Okay, spend money. Learning lore on certain franchises. Actually a fan of Dragon Ball, Godzilla, Asians. Okay. Only watch them as a fan. Okay. Went to Jakarta alone using KRL, the train, to attend her concert until midnight. Okay, that's quite crazy for a student. Spend money on merch. Yeah. Okay. And then have you been, for example, go to the to the ritual space? For example, when your you are a fan of, for example, a movie star and then or a musician, and then you go to the place where they were born or where the music, the studio, where they recorded the song or something like that. Have you, for example, in Laskar Pelangi in Belitung, or did you going to One Piece Orchestra in August 10, 2020 alone? Wow, that's quite crazy. Okay. Okay. Yeah, thank you for your contribution. So actually, fan culture studies or fandom is, I think, it's arguably is quite new in Indonesian context, yeah. Because if we talk about communication studies, media studies, or cultural studies, or probably film studies, people most of the time discuss the textual analysis, yeah, the content and so on, but not the fans or the star and so on. So in the last 5 years in Indonesian context, there are a lot of progress, yeah, within the studies or in the fan activities. For example, there are some cosplays, professional cosplayers, and then Comic-Con and so on. So fan culture is about from buying the tickets to film tourism, or going as a going to pilgrim, yeah, so to speak, yeah, to go to where the historical sites. And then in film department, why we decided to do this webinar, because at least there are 2 courses related strongly to fan culture. The first is Southeast Asian cinema and pop culture in semester 6, and then the second one is audience and fan culture in semester 7. So both courses are part of free elective. Yeah, we want to do free elective. If you are interested in this discussion, please consider to choose audience and fan culture in semester 7, or Southeast Asian cinema and pop culture in semester 6. Yeah, the next this semester actually. And then for film students they are part of film study streaming. Okay, I think that's all about the introduction. So today I am very pleased and honored to have two guests. Yeah. So we want to know about the fan culture in Southeast Asia, not only in Indonesia, because we are neighbors. So what happened about is there any connection, transnational fan culture or something like that? So that's why we invite the first speaker is Dr. Wikanda from Promkhuntong. Did I spell it correctly? Okay. Yes, thank you. From Mahidol University, Thailand. And the second one is Dr. Bertha Chin. Hello, Bertha. From Swinburne University of Technology in Malaysia. It is in Sarawak, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, in Sarawak. Okay. So as I said earlier, please, if you have any comments or any question, please write in the chat box. And then first we will I will ask Dr. Wikanda from Promkhuntong to present about 20-30 minutes, and then followed by Dr. Bertha Chin for 20 or 30 minutes. And then after that, I will ask the audience if you want to have any question or comments, or probably you have your own experience or research on fandom or as a fan yourself. Yeah, just go ahead. This is open and free for you to speak up. Yeah, and then we will, if the rundown is running smoothly, 15 minutes before 3 o'clock we will have photo session, and then after that I will show you the exit tickets for the students. Okay, so stay until the end. Okay, for Dr. Wikanda from Promkhuntong, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Ekky. Everyone can see the slides, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'll time myself as well. So there are more than one fan culture, obviously, as the list that you've shared with us already tells us that so many, interests and forms of media and practices that we can engage with as a fan. My presentation deals with just one element of this fan culture, which is the culture of visiting the location that a film, a TV series, or even a novel, fan writings is set in. And in Thailand, this practice has become a phenomenon around 2010s onward, because it's become an internal interest of people within the country to travel to local drama locations. And it grows within the digital boom with Instagram, with the geotag. So I began to be interested in how the earlier idea of going to location has changed to this kind of more digital modern day practice of fan tourism. And there are other terms that I will mention today. I want to begin by give you guys a little bit of intro as to how in Thailand, the public perception on this practice is one thing, and the fan kind of approach to studying this kind of practice is another, and how we incorporate these different ideas of film location and the fans together. And I've got some case studies on action film, martial arts films, on queer films, and which has a connection to contemporary boys' love drama, which has currently in Thailand is the thing that I think international fans are coming to Thailand to follow these locations, and some Netflix series set in Thailand and so on. And also this practice extends beyond kind of popular film or blockbuster film to even kind of an author or independent cinema with the very unique set of locations that fans follow. And how do we approach these different type of genre of media? So let's start with Oops, can't move to the next slide. Come on. Okay. I think it starts from the end. So hang on, let me move to the first page first. All right. We are here now, yeah. Full screen. So even though I said in Thailand it started around 2010, but actually within the context of Thailand as a location, it has always attracted interest of filmmakers, production studios, and I think it goes with Indonesia, with Malaysia, and a lot of countries in East Asia as a location to film a particular type of films. And in Thailand during the Cold War period, the post-World War II period, there's a lot of kind of Vietnam War films shot in Thailand. And this is particularly because they couldn't shot this movie in Vietnam, and we have kind of close looking locations. So there were, most of these films are action film, like Bruce Lee films as well, the martial arts film, and some of these well-known, I'm not sure if you've even heard of the name, but film like Deer Hunter, The Killing Field, still attract interest to people, to locations, and it created a particular name of the location. For example, the James Bond film, 07, Man with the Golden Gun, has high impact to the extent that the location itself now called the James Bond Island. So it's not nothing. This phenomenon has transformed the location itself to be associated with the film name. And this kind of practice begin kind of more popularized with the low-cost airlines. There's a lot of tour business setting up to bring tourists to location like the beach, with Leonardo DiCaprio as a main character, or Bridget Jones, and so on. And some East Asian film also has been discussed more in relation to film locations. And the part that draw local audience are mostly love stories that take place in like the north of Thailand, in Chiang Mai, or in some old town, with this kind of sentiment of nostalgia involved. So going to this location allow them to revisit their older day when they grow up, and so it has this multiple meanings at different era for different group of people. And of course, post-COVID, there's a lot of BL fans began interested in this boys love fan tourism. My background is from a series. I'm not sure if anyone had watched it. If anyone know which series this background image is from, put in the back of in the chat room. It was set in Phuket. So if anyone know the name. So the inevitable subject of discussion within Thailand among academics and among people when they talk about location is always why Thailand is always presented as exotic. It's not real. Like it's overly, it's full of, for example, in a film that in a hotel always had orchids. Why is it always orchids in these films? Or it's very attractive, always got the beach or the mountain, but equally dangerous and a capital of gambling, of crime. And I think it goes across this perception of films, perhaps non-local film, like Hollywood films, well-known blockbuster film. When took place in Southeast Asia, it has this kind of perceptions that unequal balance between those who are looking and those who are being looked at, while those being looked at are always less developed for some reason. So there have been academics talking about this idea of post-colonial, neo-colonial perception in this film. And this is looking at the film text, right? And some of the film also created a lot of interest, maybe not as a fan, but as a kind of attractive new location. So there's idea of going there just to check in, and then there's a tour company setting up the trail. So the subject of over-tourism and environmental concerns are all involved with the aspect of film location. And the government around 2014-15 in Thailand started to think, wait a minute, maybe we can make money with all of these fans. We can actually create theme parks, perhaps to attract people to come to Thailand, like they go to the Harry Potter theme park, so on, in Japan and in some countries, reconstructed a location. And that was open. There were 2 places created, but the decision of this film, one of the film was Oliver Stone's Alexander. I'm not sure if anyone had watched it. It raised a lot of questions like, why this film? And you created a set in the middle of nowhere. So in the end, it's become deserted. And another location that was built was it's almost like a museum or exhibition site for James Bond, Man with the Golden Gun, but it was never open because of the dispute between the local authority and the central authorities of who's gonna collect the money and so on. So the narrative of fans entered through the discussion, but not through the fans themselves, but through the ideas that they could perhaps monetize fan interest. And this is when I think film academics and scholars and fan study can help kind of draw attention to the more engaging aspects and perhaps a more sustainable way to look at these locations through the rituals of fan practice that's been going on for many years. One of the film I'll be talking about has been having fans visiting Thailand for 50 years, more than 50 years. So one of the ways to think about this is by shifting the attention from national and identity of being Thai and how do we show our location to look at more on the fan culture. And I'm quoting Bertha's work and Lori Morimoto that kind of highlight how fan studies is sort of come later than the work that come from more critical cultural studies or area studies that look at this from the representation viewpoint. So what is special about fan pilgrimage for the fans? For one thing, it doesn't just start with a location. It's always start with how we feel so deeply about a particular anime, about a particular series, so much so that we feel that it has taken us somewhere we've not been. And it allowed us to be someplace, and it has allowed us to symbolically travel or virtually travel. And the characters and the stories of particular scenes really draw our attention. And the work of Roger C. Eden, this book here, talks about this process of liminality. We feel the sense that we are able to forget about our problem today in our everyday setting to kind of go to this liminal state and be able to discuss this process of experiencing somewhere else with other people who have watched the same series or the same film. So there is this kind of communities that are formed through these texts. And by going there to the location, and we have a place to anchor our feelings, this strong emotion and our memories of these texts. So Hills borrowed this idea of symbolic pilgrimage to develop a way to understand fan practice by looking at how they engage with the location symbolically as well as physically. Different scholars use different names because fan tourism sometimes as a term doesn't really highlight the ritual element and the connection between fan and the location. So the term like cultography or pilgrimage to reflect on this complex relationship and how we feel strongly about a particular place in the media text. And when we actually go there, it's never quite easy to get into the story because it's always like loud noise, it's hot. There's always something that either facilitate or actually distract us from getting into the story when we arrive at that location. So fans' way of negotiating this memory, this imaginative world and the real world is a process that's going on through either you take a photo, you reenact, you tell a story, you write a story, you take a photo. So there are different practices to almost free up that space, to liberate that space so that your story, your narrative can get into among other history that are happening in the location. So in the context of Thailand, now moving on to some of the case studies, some of the examples. In the context of Thailand, there are different groups of fans interested in different films. So I'm going to give you 3 examples. The first one are the kind of ones that you might not feel most connected with. So I'm trying to move this out of the way. The martial art films I mentioned, the Cold War film, they're not just James Bond. There's so many. I've actually created an online map that tried to trace this kind of earlier film, like Rambo was shot in Thailand, and a few other films. Many of these films have very close, the characters and the fans have close kind of relation. So with James Bond, Satyajit Rajinder talk about how the hero figure of Bond allow the fan when they go to location to perform being James Bond by reenacting the scene. So for a moment, they can imagine being the hero, being this masculine that is popular, this hegemonic masculine that they can perform. So it deals with the element of being a male, being a hero. So the idea of gender, the idea of individual figure is an important part of practicing fandom in this case. Another case which I'm kind of working on, I've visited the location and I'm hoping to write a paper on this, which is the legacy of the fan of Bruce Lee. I'm not sure if anyone knows Bruce Lee, but I guess he's a big martial arts star before Jackie Chan and all others. And Bruce Lee Big Boss, a really important film for him, was shot in Thailand. Now really like in the middle of nowhere town in northeast Thailand. So when they go to this location, this fan talks about how this film allowed them to overcome bullies, allow them to overcome hardship when they watch it in the 70s. So a lot of them bring their family and children to kind of reflect on this spiritual home for them as they were going through teenage years. At the same time, there are other people who engage with this film, such as the expat, the foreigners who moved to live in Thailand, and they have a different story to tell about this film, and they become like a tour guide with their knowledge and cultural capital about this film. So each of these different groups has different view towards this film. Another film that I think, another genre that you guys may be more related to are the love films. We call it Nang Rak, directly translated as love film. And this love film, it's a classic melodrama for Thai media. Like you can't miss it on the Thai TV. And over the years, since we have television, the genre has mostly connected with the idea of the nation and national identity. But as the country kind of entered this kind of transmedia and transnational world, the idea of relationship has changed. And in 2010, this love film, it became more like a trendy drama rom-com combined with queer and gay indie film together. And so it allows this kind of multiple relationship and multiple type love to play out. So fan practices has also evolved as the media has changed. So we've got reenactment, which is going to the location, usually boutique hotels set in different places, and to imagine what it would be like for you, for me, for the fan, to be able to access that type of romance that the society might not think is common, like older women falling in love with younger men. Back in early 2000s, 2010, there weren't that many stories about older women and younger hot male. And of course, there's queer drama that are coming out at the time. So by performing it and showing it everywhere on social media, on weblog, it pushes the boundary of what we can now see visible in Thai media. So I think fan has a very important part in performing and making it possible for now to become normalized as a storytelling. And there are other practices like creating maps, alternative routes to go to this location. And for me, I see this as a practice of almost creating an effective map, a map that the city doesn't provide, and allow fans to talk about what kind of city they want to live in. And it highlights a lot of issues as well when fans trying to get somewhere and there were no van. Our public transport is very bad. So fan tourism is actually highlighting how bad it is that our city is inaccessible. So through talking about their love, there is other aspect that they push for as well. And the last aspect of fan practice with this love story, because many of the location that was used for this film cultural heritage site, but pop culture heritage site. And during COVID, many of these sites had been threatened for demolition. So through hashtag activism, fans have been trying to make sure these places are protected or are kept instead of demolished. Not always successful, but they've made a point in trying to save a cinema called Scala in downtown Bangkok, for example. And last example is the practice of going to location of more indie film. And I think this had other dimension we can think about. It always often started by the critics, the cinephile. So it highlights this tradition of citations within the kind of art world. And it also, for young filmmakers, become a practice of paying homage to Wong Kar-wai, for example, by going to Hong Kong and trying to reconstruct that scene. How did he film it? What kind of edit did he do? And how did he manipulate all these locations? So fan narrative kind of highlight, the identity of the fans as potential subsequently indie filmmaker. And of course, it's perpetuate particular canon, certain film get remembered and become part of like Asian film history. And fan play an important role in creating this longer shelf life for the film. And I want to conclude with the fact that we have to think about fans as part of this fan practice of fan tourism. But there are always other agents involved in fan tourism. So there are the local authorities, there are the location owners, the locals, the city environment, and all of these aspects can come into play when we reflect about this practice. And not just human agents, but things like a material object of the road and the technology that we use to get information about location and how we share the story. These are the things we can think about when we think of the fan pilgrimage or fan tourism. So I think that's it for me. Thank you. I'll stop here.
Great. Thank you very much, Dr. Promkhuntong. Or I usually call her Tan. Yeah. And but related to Thai cinema, I think in the last 5 years in Indonesia there are so many, Thai horror, the Medium, for example, and then particularly there are some specific horror from Thailand, for example, a Jinn curse or something like related to Muslims. That's very interesting, and I think those kind of horror films have fans in Indonesia. I think I read something about this. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, we can talk about it in the chat. Yeah. Also, I just want to congratulate the student who share the name of the series that was I Told Sunset About You. Yes.
Yeah, and you talk a lot about broad issues from fan pilgrimage and tourism, and then I think there is a lot of similarities, yeah, because I also wrote a paper, and then I divided, or we can discuss about this with Bertha as well, like between film travelers and film pilgrimage, yeah, something like film travelers is fans, and then film travelers, film pilgrimage is fans, particularly who are very obsessed, or as you say, like for nostalgia reenactment. And then the second one is film travelers, yeah, because they just travel and then realize, oh, this is where Laskar Pelangi was shot and something there. That's also a very nice discussion. Okay, and then you mentioned interesting examples, yeah, like from James Bond to Bruce Lee to Wong Kar-wai. And as I hope our students, particularly film students, they also know about these big names. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, for the students, for participants, please hold your question, or just if you want to ask something, just put it in the comment chat, the chat box, yeah, because we are moving to Dr. Bertha Chin from Swinburne University of Technology in Malaysia, and she will present about fan culture in Malaysia. Thank you. Bertha, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Ekky. I'm just gonna share my screen. Okay, play. So hi everybody, and then also thank you for being here. Thank you, Ekky, for inviting Tanya and myself to be here and to speak about fan cultures in Southeast Asia. I think just to kind of give a background, a lot of my research doesn't really focus on Malaysian fan cultures, also because I've not spent a lot of time growing up. I haven't spent a lot of time in Malaysia, and it's actually quite a very complex. We're neighbors with Thailand and with Indonesia, but it's so the sort of the national identity and the racial identity, the racial makeup of the country is so different and also very, very complex. And I think I will touch a little bit on that as well today. But just to sort of give I guess a kind of overview of the early part of my work. And it's on this term that I did with Lori Morimoto, which Tan, you mentioned earlier, is on this concept of transcultural fandom. And when Lori Morimoto and myself, when we were talking about it, we first met because we were both fans of Leslie Cheung. So maybe some of you may know of him, hopefully. So he's passed away now for quite a long time, but he is a major, star still in Hong Kong, a major star in a lot of Wong Kar-wai films as well. And I grew up listening to his music. And so Lori Morimoto and I both sort of came to know each other as PhD students, but also as researchers and as fans, because we were both fans of The X-Files and then of Leslie Cheung. So we started talking about why, kind of fan studies at the time when we were both kind of researching into this field it was sort of absent of fans like me, fans who look like me, basically, but also kind of focusing on a lot of texts which were very much coming from America in particular, as well as in the UK, which is where I was doing my PhD. And incidentally, I think this is where Tan, Ekky, and myself met. And so a lot of the focus was actually on American texts, but also then on American fans. And so this is sort of where the transcultural fandom concept first came in. What happens to fans like myself, who was born and raised in Asia, educated within the sort of the English language, and then moved on to Australia and then to the UK, and whose media consumption is very much on sort of Western media, so Hollywood, the UK, some Australian media as well. But when we look at the work that's been done, people like me are absent. People who may come from maybe a bilingual background, but also the sort of very mixed heritage background. And I grew up in Sarawak, which has, more than 50% of the population is actually mixed race. Not just Eurasian, but sort of mixed race with our local indigenous cultures, but with Chinese who may convert to Muslim. So we are multi-religious, multi-racial, and none of this seems to be sort of represented within fan studies at the time. Laurie, at the other hand, was sort of coming from the opposite side. She's American and she grew up in Hong Kong, and then she was in Japan, and then she became a fan of a lot of the American texts while she was in Hong Kong. And then when she moved back to the States, she started becoming fans of the Hong Kong films that she would have been able to get very easily in Hong Kong, but then didn't really kind of probably capitalize on that until she went back to the States. So we were both sort of coming from the same sort of background, because I didn't really appreciate Hong Kong cinema until I was living in Australia. And then consuming Hong Kong cinema, action films, romance films, Wong Kar-wai films, anything that I could get my hands on when I was in Australia. So we started developing this concept of transcultural fandom. So realizing that fans didn't really care where something was being made, because a lot of the work coming out of media studies at the time was talking about how Japanese media was being made for an Asian audience, because Asian audience would feel some sort of geographical but also sort of cultural affinity to the plot lines, the characters, also maybe in terms of the language as well. But we felt that something was missing, and also in our conversations with a lot of fans who were like ourselves, that people were becoming fans due to an affinity, something that they saw in the media text. It didn't matter that they were coming from a different cultural background, a different language background. It was just something in the characters of the film or the television series, maybe the universes. So like Harry Potter, for example, if you hadn't been to the UK, being in a boarding school sort of situation might be very foreign to you, but it didn't really matter, because what was important was perhaps the friendship that was coming out of these stories that was being told, or the sort of fantasy universes that was being created in Harry Potter, in Star Wars, this sort of thing. But also perhaps, kind of plot lines that people become really fascinated with. So the national context didn't really matter. Didn't matter whether something was being made in South Korea, or it was, very specifically Korean or Japanese. It was more about, kind of what these media texts was about. So essentially, I'm sort of talking something like this, right? These are kind of two examples from Instagram, and this would be sort of The Witcher, characters from The Witcher and Game of Thrones looking like anime characters. So what we're seeing essentially is there's a lot of fan art that's being produced, but then fans would create fan art or art which is familiar to them. So if they grew up with anime, for example, but love The Witcher, they would be creating art which they see best, kind of represent themselves in one way or another. So essentially what is happening is that these media texts, they are being, they may represent kind of European cultures. They are crossing national and cultural boundaries. Fans were coming from Indonesia, from Malaysia, from everywhere around the world. It didn't matter, and they were creating fan fiction, fan art, in the best way that fans would want to see their favorite characters. or inserting themselves. And some of them would go on to draw some of these characters to best represent themselves racially, for example, maybe gender bent some of these characters that they best feel represent what they want to see within the sort of the media text that they were consuming. So that was how we came up with the concept of the sort of transcultural fandom. It was, the idea was actually to move the discussion and the focus away from Anglo-American fans of Western texts, and in the hopes that fan studies as a growing or emerging field at the time, I suppose, will start to think about fans from more diverse backgrounds, particularly at the time, things like Netflix, things like Disney Plus, streaming platforms was becoming more accessible around the world as well. So it gave us an opportunity to kind of consume a lot of texts which were coming from, various kind of cultural makeups, if you will. And then my work sort of moved in a way ever since I moved back to Malaysia. I was starting to see a lot of discussions about post-colonialism or neo-colonialism as well, kind of just from things that was happening within politics. And also, so last year, sorry, not last year, I'm sort of moving ahead. What we're seeing within sort of Hollywood as well, and in the last 5 to 10 years, is a growth in film and television, which started to be more aware of Asian and particularly Southeast Asian representation within sort of Hollywood films and television. There's two Indonesian actors, for example, Iko Uwais and Joe Taslim, who have made that sort of very international crossover. And they're now in Joe Taslim, I think, is in the upcoming Mortal Kombat sequel game adaptation. He was in the first one and he will be in the second one. And then Iko Uwais was in Star Wars. And then is very well known for his martial arts, silat, kind of capabilities, for example. So there's a growth in this, in what I call Hollywood's diversity project, because you're starting to see a lot more of these projects and a lot more diverse faces being represented in this text. And it's led to a very celebratory call, if you will, or celebratory kind of body of work in terms of this diversity in representation. But it also means that within fan studies, people are talking about how there's more choices for fans, and these choices, some of them sort of represented here, the more recent ones, a lot of them are coming from Netflix and Disney Plus. So streaming platforms play a huge role in opening up this diversity. It sort of reflect fans' diverse and global backgrounds as well. So my focus really is on American-made shows still, so Hollywood-made shows, which feature Asian or Southeast Asian characters, if you will. And part of this is also to do with the growth of streaming platforms and streaming platforms wanting to tap into the market that is offered by South Korea, by Thailand in particular, because of the boy love genre is becoming such a huge thing. So with the work that I was doing with transcultural fandom, I was really kind of curious whether or not this is reflective of fans' complex and diverse backgrounds, basically, and whether this also reflects their tastes and their media consumption. So in other words, our fans like myself still feel, do they still feel being left out of that sort of conversation, if you will. And then, of course, last year, this happened when we talk about media representation. So Michelle Yeoh winning the Oscars in 2023 was obviously sort of celebrated everywhere. I screen cap about 4 different headlines that made the news when she won the award. And there was, of course, a lot of debates that then started happening in Malaysia. And then the sort of the very complex kind of racial and of course, sort of cultural debate started to happen within Malaysia. Was it possible for her to have, become, or to have the career that she would have had, or she's having right now, if she would have stayed in Malaysia, being of Chinese descent, in a, kind of in a sense, sort of racially divided country, in a way. There's of course a lot of celebratory, and of course straight after her win, almost everyone was sort of claiming a piece of her, if you will, a piece of Michelle Yeoh, or the brand, or the celebrity form image that is Michelle Yeoh. Hollywood was claiming her to be, kind of Chinese American or Asian American. There were some news reports that claimed her as such. Malaysia, of course, was of course, claiming her as Malaysian. Hong Kong, where she started her career, was claiming her as somebody who was from Hong Kong. And it brought up this really, really interesting kind of debates about, who she is, who she, kind of who made her, in other words, the celebrity figure, or the celebrity image of Michelle Yeoh, who made her, or who or which country she represents. And it's something that comes up again and again. And I think it's sort of encapsulated in that last, the bottom headline, Everything Everywhere All at Once, but is she Malaysian enough? And this is the sort of debate that gets talked about, not just with her, but a lot of Malaysian or Southeast Asian celebrities who were seen to have made it into Hollywood, in a sense, sort of transnational stars, if you will. And then, of course, bringing it back to fan studies, there's a lot of question about where her fans are. Are they local Malaysians? Are they, kind of Malaysians like her who were born and raised in Malaysia and then have found successes somewhere else, or have, made a career out of themselves, particularly in creative industries elsewhere. So there's all this debate that was going on within the public space, and it made this idea about transcultural fandom and about media representation, in my view, way more complicated than I think we would have seen it initially when we were thinking about Hollywood's diversity project, in a sense. So what I was trying to kind of get at was that, when you view it from the way Hollywood was doing it, you have, rather than just the one Asian character, you now very likely have an entire cast made up of entire, all different parts of different Asian Americans, maybe one white character. But when you move that discussion or that observation away from America or from the UK into Asia, it gets much more complicated, especially in a country like Malaysia. Politically, it's very divided, but also, all this debate, you cannot talk about anything in Malaysia without playing the race card, basically. And even when you talk about celebrities, the race part comes in, fortunately or unfortunately, I'm not sure. So it makes this concept of transcultural fandom and media representation a lot more complex, in my view. So this is sort of where I am, in a way, what I'm looking at. But it also allowed me to look at how fandom sort of functions within Malaysia. And I've sort of come up with this idea that there's a lot of cultural baggage of being a fan in Southeast Asia. Coming back to Malaysia, and being a fan studies scholar, that was always a very interesting conversation to have with people here in Malaysia about, how are you as an adult being able to identify as a fan, for one, and how are you as an academic being able to justify doing research into fans is another conversation that always pops up whenever, I tell somebody that I'm researching fans. So out of that, there's these observations about what being a fan is in Southeast Asia, in Malaysia in particular. So fandom is seen as a practice that people grow out of. It's often, almost always attached to childhood in a way. The picture, the image on the slide is something that I took. It was actually a picture that I took. It's in the local departmental store. And every local departmental store will have this, the Funko Pop section. It is always in the children's section. And then it's right next to the children's clothes and the children's toys. And you've got, what for a lot of us pop cultures kind of researchers, we would have to go to a toy store or to a departmental store where the children's section is to actually buy fan merchandise, for example. And Funko Pop is the most, in Malaysia at least, the kind of the easiest way and the most visible and public way of identifying as a fan. Most people that I know who identify as a fan will have at least one Funko Pop. So which leads me to kind of a second observation is that fandom practice, rather than being based on something which is more transformative in the West, such as the practice of fan fiction or fan art, is almost always centered around consumption of Funko Pop, official exhibits, when huge films are being released, huge films meaning things like the Marvel superhero films, the DC films, the Star Wars films. They would be official exhibits in malls, shopping malls in Kuala Lumpur. And they would be pop-up stores of Funko Pop, kind of pop-up, kind of where you can buy. So it's very much focused on consumption. And that's not to say that production doesn't happen. It's just that a lot of fans, a lot of young people that I talk to who are active kind of creators, kind of creative into the sort of the creative production part of fandom, almost always do that in secret, as if that's something that they cannot publicly declare themselves to be part of, because it's something that's always associated with childhood. And there's a hierarchy of taste. If you are into Marvel and DC, it's always okay to actually identify as a fan. If you're into K-pop, you are perfectly safe because everybody else is into K-pop. So there is a hierarchy in a sense of who and what you can identify as a fan of. So when Taylor Swift was in Singapore, for example, everybody would be very, very comfortable with identifying suddenly as a Swiftie. And after she's left, and when I started, asking people about, when you identify as a Swiftie, like 2 weeks ago, everybody's saying, no, that's over now. And the concert's over. We're going back to our normal days now. Like, okay, so that's really interesting as well. So there are levels of, I guess, time periods where people identify as a fan. So it's not something that is always there in a way. It's very gendered and again, sort of a very racial space. There is an official Star Wars Malaysia fan club, which I have been trying to get into because I kind of research into Star Wars. It is extremely male dominated, so it's next to impossible to get into in a way. As opposed to anime, which is traditionally more female. This is not to say that this isn't so in the West, but again, this is sort of more pronounced in Malaysia. And then the last kind of point is something that I, am very much fascinated with, is that celebrities like Michelle Yeoh and Henry Golding, who is half British, half Malaysian, half Sarawakian, in fact, their celebrity image is basically commodified, and it more or less, the way people see them is that they belong to a collective us. So they belong to Malaysia in general, rather than belonging to, or rather than existing as fan tags in a sense. So in Malaysia, it becomes really complicated because the question then becomes, what is their nationality? Whose nation do they belong to? Is it the nation of Malaysia, or in the case of Henry Golding, is it kind of Sarawak that he belongs to in a sense, that sort of commodified celebrity image, and it all adds to that kind of complexity and the cultural baggage of being a fan in Malaysia. And I think I will sort of end there to leave more space for discussion and questions. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Bertha, for your insight. And you mentioned, you brought up a very interesting terms, yeah? Transcultural fandom. So it's more into a global media text rather than the national or location context. And transcultural fandom also means for me transnational, because it's all over, yeah. It's everything everywhere at all once. It's the same like Michelle Yeoh's movie. And then you also discuss a bit about fan text, yeah, a bit, and then Hollywood's diversity project. That's interesting, because now we have the issue of transnational stardom, which are closely related to transnational fandom. So if in the chat box they have there is a question, the comment about the Thai martial artist Tony Jaa and Indonesian martial artist Iko Uwais. I think these two, and then Michelle Yeoh, three of them are a product of diversity project. Yeah. So and as the result, they have transcultural fandom as well. But yeah, but one thing is another research topic. But as a fan of horror fans, I'm wondering why did people in Malaysia celebrate James Wan as well as transnational stars? It's because they're Conjuring, or it's because I don't. How do you think? Because I don't see any comment about the James Wan. This is Malaysia thing or something, but it's different with Michelle Yeoh.
It's I think if James Wan wins an Oscar, the conversation would be completely different. But they are conversations, kind of similar conversations happening as well. James Wan is also from Kuching, but I think the difference is that he moved to Australia when he was very young.
Oh, okay.
So he's always, I think, identified as a sort of a Malaysian, born in Malaysia, but Australian filmmaker who then kind of went to the States. So that makes it even more complicated, because then he's a migrant, and then he twice migrant. Because he migrated to Australia and then to the States for his career. But they are similar, possibly not to the extent of Michelle Yeoh and even to Henry Golding's kind of manner, but there are kind of when Malaysia claims James Wan as this is a Malaysian filmmaker, the Sarawakians will go, no, he's from Sarawak. And you did not give him a career. That's why he had to move away. And that's, it's very territorial in that kind of discussion. It's very interesting, just not as visible and public as, the ones that I've seen on Michelle Yeoh and Henry Golding.
Yeah. Oh, so that's a different case, yeah, with, for example, Tony Jaa or Iko Uwais, because Tony Jaa is based in Thailand, yeah. So it's like Tony Jaa belongs to Thailand. Is it the case or about that time?
Even though when he won something, we would claim he's Thai. as Bertha said, we have the similar, I think, Southeast Asian almost identity complex. We have to to be known international before we can be known local. Like we can't be known locally to be known anywhere, to have made it. And I think the case for Tony Jaa interestingly reflect on transcultural fandom that most fans are outside Thailand. I think maybe at the beginning, when his film came out, he became like, wow, someone who actually practiced martial art can actually be actors. But his film is known within Thailand through the director. more than the star. So the director has more public kind of recognition, and now he continued to get invited to all sorts of committee. But as a figure, I think he is being appreciated more in the Middle East and in America and in the West as a martial art. Particularly he's in Fast and Furious and so on. So it's interesting that because he's not an ideal subject of male desire here, so,
okay.
not desirable by
okay. I just knew about this.
There's this whole kind of race, identity, and gender that is put on male star in Thailand. And no, so we fascinate with him, what he can do, but we don't desire or like him. I'm generalizing, but as a fan.
Yeah, because go ahead.
There were two other things that I find is really interesting in Bertha presentation, just kind of nitpicking on. One is this idea of the term fandom itself in Thailand is very complicated. Because when you use the word fandom, it associated mainly with K-pop. That's it. It doesn't extend to other fan. So now it does extend to BL, but they don't call it fandom. They call it dom, to shorten for, and mostly associated with Korean, Japanese culture. So it's a limitation of the local perception of the terms, and as you said, it's associated with young people. So for me, who's interested in historical fandom, I have to use other terms almost. I think that is something that we can even unpack in the baggages of terms. And the local restaurant not far from where I live called Fandom is Korean restaurant. It's obvious. It can't be any other Asian.
That's nice.
Yeah, so we have like traditional female fandom, fan of like local dancers and singers, like traditional artists. And this different term completely, and it referred to basically like sugar mama, like in the Thai word mayok, we're the sugar mama of the artist. And it's interesting that this identity of being a sugar mama is still embraced, but they don't call mayok anymore. Mayok is associated with traditional artists, so they coined new terms. Like the BL fan, they call themselves Sawai. We are the Y Yaoi girls. So fan would define themselves differently in order to, I think, get rid of the baggage, as Bertha mentioned. Yeah, so that's just kind of unpacking from what I was listening.
I guess it's like the term otaku in a way, like like in its early days, a lot of Japanese fans would identify themselves as otakus, and then when that term becomes problematic, they kind of remove themselves, they move away from it, and then now there's a scene of a kind of like they're reclaiming that term in a way. So perhaps that's that kind of movement as well. Is really interesting though.
Yeah. So if we have to shorten our webinar in one word, it should be complicated.
Okay. So it's right?
And one more comment from me before I ask the students to ask questions, is because both of you have similar discussion, which is Hong Kong, because Tan discuss a bit more about a little bit about the Wong Kar-wai, and Bertha was discussing Michelle. But actually in Indonesia, I'm now writing with Thomas Barker about Hong Kong Indonesia cinematic relationship, and a star called Billy Chong, who was very famous in the 70s and 80s, but nobody knows in Indonesia. Billy Chong is Willy Dozan, but now he only plays soap opera, sinetron, or something like that. But it's very interesting because Chow Yun-fat first films were produced by an Indonesian. And now his children they are still producing films such as Kodrat and so many films, yeah, until now. Okay, we have 800 participants, yeah.
Wow.
Is
Oh
800
my
ish,
God.
yeah, yeah. But first, thank you for staying until now, yeah. If you have any question or comment, please do write in the chat box. I will read some of the comments from Dave Christian from animation. I think no matter what you are, if you are attached to a pop culture from around the world, you can embrace it with open hand as much as you please because it could be your passion. I think, yeah. I think it's okay. It's right, yeah. What do you think? I think it's about transcultural fandom. So now it's more and more into media text rather than national allocation. Yeah. Okay. From Emmanuel Peter Peng. I have a question for Miss Bertha Chin. When you mentioned the Taylor Swift concert and how people stopped identifying as a fan of her after the concert was over, can you explain why that happens? Okay.
I think I don't have a specific reason why. I suspect it has to do with the fact that particularly young people in Malaysia, and these are my students I'm talking about, they are quite careful in terms of how they identify as a fan, because they don't want to be seen as somebody who is crazy. And there's always that. They don't want to be seen as somebody who wastes a lot of time. This is something that I hear very often, that to be a fan is actually to waste time on a celebrity, and so and to waste money on top of wasting time is to waste money on a celebrity. So when Taylor Swift was in Singapore, it was okay to talk about Taylor Swift because even the politicians in Malaysia were talking about Taylor Swift, and it was a national debate, if you will. It was debated in Parliament, of all things, about why kind of Taylor Swift didn't go anywhere else or why Taylor Swift didn't go to Malaysia. And so it was seem as it was all right to talk about Taylor Swift or being a fan of Taylor Swift when everybody was just talking about going to Taylor Swift's concert. And then once that was over, it was seen as, right, now I'm going to go back to my normal life. I'm not going to waste any more time or money on something which is seen as frivolous and kind of. So I think there's, again, it goes back to the sort of perception of fandom being something which is associated with childhood. And I think more importantly for a lot of these young people is they don't want it to be seen as time wasting. And money wasting is the other thing.
It's a classic issue, yeah, since Henry Jenkins wrote about Star Trek fans, yeah. You don't have a life, get a life, something like that. Yeah. And it happens also in Southeast Asian countries. Okay, thank you. Okay, the next, I have a question. It was mentioned that for a while people became wary of using the term otaku for anime fans. May I know why? It's from Audrey. Bertha or Tan, do you want to respond?
I think Matthew wrote about this as a journal article. I'll try to kind of reflect on it. I think it's like a referring to obsessive male, a nerd. Like back in the day, nerd was considered a derogatory term, even though now nerd is being claimed back as cool nerds. But otaku had this kind of negative, like condemn these as nerd that was seen negatively. But as fan, I think, reclaimed the terms. It's no longer had that negative connotations. But yeah, and I think similar to what I was talking about earlier, how particular term has like a second meaning, like a judgment to it, that is being wrapped around the particular culture and particular society that they see this kind of fan as negative and often one-dimensional. And so yeah, fan has to find a way to reclaim the terms or change the term entirely. and yeah, so otaku has evolved as a originally related to anime fans, right? I think.
Yeah, and I think there was also a concern that there was some sort of sexual deviant connotation to it as well. So then people were kind of rather conscious about that fact, but also because otaku culture isn't just merely about that sort of sexual deviancy. I think it was just a way that it was portrayed outside of Japan as well. And then there's probably, I think Matt was also writing about it in terms of there's a shift in the way that we look at fan cultures as well, that we start, I think the second, third generation of fan study scholars then start to, I guess, to inject power or agency back to the fans to be able to identify themselves, kind of like what you were talking about, Tan, that, you know, fandom is used almost synonymously with K-pop and, you know, in Thailand, where something, you know, other people might want to use different terminology. It makes things more complex for us who research into this. But I think, you know, again, it goes back to agency to the fans to be able to kind of then inject something which is more positive back into something that they love at the end of the day.
Yeah. In Thailand, the perception towards fan has completely changed with the pro-democracy movement and the youth movement during COVID and post-COVID-19, because fan took all possible love of object of affection into politics. So protests on the streets using Hunger Game, using all sorts of Japanese or whichever nation. Even One Piece, we have a One Piece flash mob. We have like every day that these new pop culture, new groups, and even queer films. There was a whole entire reenactment of a local queer film on the streets, but they changed the name of the characters into like political characters. So yeah, it become like a critique towards those in power by using something that they see as ridiculous to push them down, and yeah, and I think this whole idea of seeing as is ridiculous, the local Thai fans said, yeah, look, you know, just watch and see what we can do with our ridiculous.
I think that's nice, to, you know, to use the fandomness or something as a tool for, you know, for resistance or you know, against, as a positional position for the political situation. That's nice. Okay, thank you. And there is a question from Axel. It's not directly about fan culture, but I think a question from a fan. Yeah. I have a question for Bertha. How did the Blue Ranger actor Yoshi Sudarso work together with Michelle Yeoh to shoot in The Brother's Son? Do you have any comment about this? No, yeah. Because yeah.
No.
But Michelle Yeoh works with so many actors, yeah, both in Hollywood and Asia. Okay. Is there any other question? We have at 100-ish participants. Please, if you want to speak directly, go ahead. Yeah. Any other question? Okay. People, because, you know, probably we can talk about something familiar with the students here, because for example, in Thailand, there are, as well as Indonesia, Thailand produce so many horror films, and particularly the films have closely related with the belief, yeah, the religion or something. Because Kasia Ancuta already talked about this last year, but I just wonder, is there any, is it because of demand of fans, because fans love this kind of films, or Is it just a commodity for the producers in Thailand?
Yeah, that's a interesting question, because I think you can approach it in different ways. But the most typical way that the industry and the public here would answer is that because money is scarce. Even now, money is scarce within the film production, within media productions. So you got to make sure you make money. And the two genres that always kind of make money here in Thailand locally, traditionally, is either comedy or horror. They're low cost, and they low cost to make in terms of production. You can have a DIY sketch, and so the whole like CG of horror is very different than you making a sci-fi CG. So the two genre, it's like a staple within the cinema, and also it reflected in industry and distribution wise. It reflects a monopoly of two big companies in Thailand who owns almost all the cinemas. So they can discard it. A lot of great films that are coming out of Thailand that might not exactly be horror, but they don't get enough distribution. So the filmmaker or whoever had idea have to take a risk that the cinema might give them only 3 days of release in the cinema, and that's it. So a lot of interesting trend that's been happening is a lot of like young filmmakers who might not want to make horror but want to make documentary and so on. They approach Netflix and some streamings who now have like set up a local company to fund local projects. So they kind of, I think, allow more visibility. But yes, they are like massive fans of horror. So I think that is also the reason why it continued to grow and evolve. And I think it has changed over the year. Now horror is no longer just a local genre. It's always like it's now I think regional genre. So there's like the medium is a co-production with South Korea, and so this kind of possibility of tapping on to the well-known Japanese horror to South Korean horror, and how we can create a hybrid or more interesting story from different part of Asia is I think what they're trying to use to get more money from these or like bigger studio, bigger financier, but also to get a fan of not only Thai horror but Japanese, South Korean horror to watch more. Yeah, Thai horror or yeah. I'm not sure if there are any co-production between Thai and Indonesia on horror yet.
Not in horror, but in action with Tony Jaa and Iko Uwais in Triple Threat or something. Yeah, it's action. Yeah. Okay, I have one more questions for both of you, because before Netflix and OTT, it was very, very difficult to watch films from Southeast Asia. But now, thanks to OTT, we can, in Netflix, there are options like Tagalog, Filipino, Malay, or something in Thai. So, and even Tiger Stripes, yeah, because film festival darlings, like they have the platform. So, what do you think about the role of this OTT and in relation with transnational fandom? Because many people, particularly in Indonesia, they more and more watch Thai or Malay or Filipino films because because the options are there, they can choose. So probably we can discuss about transnational or cultural pan Southeast Asian fans, yeah, about this, yeah, because like for example, something like that. So what do you think? And then the impact, the influence towards the transnational fan culture.
I've seen a positive sort of impact, particularly I think in the development of Malaysia's creative industries in a sense. I think for such a long time it was just quite dire. And whenever I talk to kind of my students, for example, they will always say we watch Indonesian films. Because Malaysian films just aren't up to par for them, especially these are the young people who's watching a lot of Korean dramas, a lot of Thai horror, and then they say, oh, when we watch Malaysian films, it's just like you can see that it's cheaply made. But then if you watch the Indonesian action cinema, action films, and they get screened here a lot as well. The Thai horrors and the Indonesian action films, they get screened in cinemas here. I think it's a good thing in a sense, because it's now become more accessible on platforms like Netflix and Disney Plus, for example. And I think it's created an edge, because now you're when you talk to young filmmakers, they're saying, we want to go to Thailand, for example, to look into how you produce. If South Korea was too far and too expensive for them to go to, now Thailand is an option to produce sort of more BL or romance genre level type of films, and that's sort of where they can get their inspiration, but also I think training from. And then to me, diversity and this idea of choice is always a good thing, because I think it proves to certainly the people who are financing. So FINAS, for example, the film funded film commission in Malaysia, is sort of now realizing that they're losing a lot of filmmakers because filmmakers are just going to Thailand or Indonesia, and then they're going to Hong Kong, they're going to China, for example, much like Michelle Yeoh and James Wan. So they realized that in order to keep the young people here in Malaysia, they will have to start investing in the creative industries. So you're seeing a lot of, at least in Sarawak, for example, state level funding is now being directed towards the creative industries, just to keep the creative professionals within Malaysia, so that they don't go elsewhere. And there are now more funding opportunities. There's now also kind of more opportunities also for distribution, for example. I'm seeing a lot more film festivals, like smaller film festivals, than even when 9 years ago when I first moved back here, it was just you have to create them in if you want to see this sort of things. But now these things are being created and being promoted to students as well. So I think it's a positive thing, at least for Malaysia. Anyway, yeah.
I agree with Bertha, but two other things I may add. Because of the library, what's invisible to individual users, they're either the one that are trending or the one that we normally watch. So their algorithm is kind of like playing a tricks on what's visible and what's not visible. So for Thailand, the role of I would say the cinephiles who have Facebook pages and review some of these kind of local films or more indie films, they become such a key figure, and they're not critics. They're just young people who want to shed light or share the love of like a film that they discover on Netflix. So they become much important, like intermediary, and they're not fans. They don't get paid for it. But more recently, some of these have such a huge follower that they get invited to premieres and so on. So they just started a career by reviewing Netflix films. And that's interesting, because I think it creates diversity through the audience, not with the limitation of the platform. Another point that the Netflix platform and comparison to other platforms, maybe the Chinese platforms that are investing some money for BL, or not even investing, but they're happy to buy the rights. It's a comparison that the film crew made between working for these different companies. So that's a subject I've been working on since COVID-19, which is the film labor. And it became a thing because everybody was out of jobs. But when everybody was out of job, everyone started comparing how much you get paid, how many hours have you had to work. So with Netflix, there's a standard 12 hours, which is very different than the Thai production work hour shift, which is 16 shifts per hour. That is adopted from television era, but we still haven't changed it. So this kind of comparison between the budget spent and the labor condition have become an issues that are more like open now, no longer just invisible. And Netflix themselves also like take pride in their like they have like sensitivity training and all that. but also there are those who have social media and said, oh, it's just paperwork. In reality, it's not. and anyway, so it making behind the scene comparison become much more different between local and international.
Since Bertha mentioned about film commission, what do you think about the role of film commissions in maintaining and increasing fan pilgrimage? So film fan pilgrimage or fan tourism, is it bottom up from the fans, the initiative from the fan, or is there any, any attempts, any projects or regulation to maintain or to increase the fan pilgrims or fans tourism in Thailand and in Malaysia?
In Thailand, it's almost like they talk about fans, but they don't engage with fans. So, and the agents, the government agent who deals with foreign film and Thai film are different agents. So the Thai system itself is messy. It's very messy. So the foreign film, the tourism authority, Ministry of Tourism Sports deal with foreign film, but the Thai film Ministry of Culture, and both of them has different agenda. So when it comes to promotion of fan location back in 2014-15, they thought they want to promote the theme parks, right? So but the aim really was not to talk about fan, but to promote tourism to these provinces.
Oh, okay.
So it become very top down, and fan pilgrimage is not a top down thing. You can't tell fan where to go. That's not how it works. So, but now some local local community, they create their own content, and it's not really to engage with the fan, but to engage with the memories of particular film, and that fan would come in to reflect on their own memories. So one particular district in Bangkok, they have really savvy admin, and they just keep doing this really amazing recall of certain film shot in that district. But most of the time, sadly, the authorities still got it wrong. It's like the government even funded my project, but I think nobody have read the report. I think it's Southeast Asian problem, but maybe different.
No, it's the same. It's exactly the same. And we've had the same issue, and the problem with at least Thailand is known as a film location, and Malaysia isn't even known as a film location. And certainly they haven't capitalized. And the worst thing is, it's really interesting, they haven't capitalized on the success of Crazy Rich Asians, considering that half the film was actually shot in Malaysia. They haven't capitalized on that. And what I've seen, I've seen literally Ministry of Tourism doing exactly the same thing on a state level, and they did exactly that. They tried to so Sarawak's history is slightly different, and there was 100 years of white rulers, and they were known as the White Rajas. So the Brooks, the family, is still very much involved with the heritage sector in Sarawak. When they left after the Japanese occupation, they took a lot of the things that were given to them. And in the last, since 2016, there's been a kind of, the Brooke family has basically brought these things back to Sarawak and open museums so that the local people can actually recognize where the heritage and the history is coming from. So about pre-COVID, there was a film that was being made, and it was titled Raja, and I think it's been renamed To the Edge of the World. I haven't seen it, but cinematically, it's beautiful. And what the government, it's part funded by the Ministry of Tourism and the state government, and they did exactly the same thing. They wanted to create a theme park, but without first testing what the film was about. And again, you have a film which is slightly historical, and it's not even based on history. So you annoy the historians And you annoy the purists because you're now, injecting kind of a Hollywood dramatization into somebody's history. And because a lot of people's families is still very much connected, because it's quite recent, because they ruled until 1945 before the Japanese occupation. So it's still very recent. A lot of people have very, very strong memories and nostalgia surrounding this sort of 100-year rule. And so you piss people off on one hand because you dramatize, Hollywood dramatization. Government comes in and say, right, we want to create a theme park. And I was sort of on the side, and I was sort of involved on the periphery of the production. I was telling them, no, don't do that, because, you can't, exactly what Tan said, you cannot tell fans what to do. You cannot tell people to be fans of this film without a test screening, without anything, basically. And they hampered on the fact that Dominic Monaghan from Lord of the Rings was cast. And I was like, it doesn't work that way. It's not, it's not Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, or it's not even Marvel or DC. It doesn't work this way. So it failed. And all the props of the film is still sitting in a warehouse somewhere. And money that was supposed to go into, that the government has funded to go into the theme park, I don't know what happened. Somewhere. Yeah, so it doesn't work. Age old, you can't tell fans what to do. It will always fail.
One last question. I've heard that many fans came to Ipoh for, because that was where Yasin Ahmad shot most of her films. But I don't think it has a relation related to film commission. Is it a private sector, right? Or just initiative from the fans?
The conversations that I've had with a lot of people in the film commission is they are completely unaware of how things work in regards to film and audiences and cinephiles and fandom. And it's just like, do you realize that people who are fans will go and they're like, what? They are fans? Like,
okay, so
yeah. So it's a conversation that is bound to break down.
Yeah, we have another similarities between the three countries. Okay, okay. I'm sorry for the
One thing in the chat, I just want to quickly address
yeah. Okay, you go ahead.
Yeah.
From Farrell, yeah.
Yeah, Mohammed talks about this male figure, and my work deals with that a little bit. Which is this kind of fan embodiment or fan wish to embody a particular characters that I think reflect the sentiment of the era. And the figure of Ryan Gosling fit into this role of this kind of moody, like Tony Leung, smoking, and it's kind of like repress all these thinking, and Wong Kar-wai wearing sunglasses and all that. And I think in the end it depends on a particular location or group of sectors of audience, how they do with it. What do they do with it? But more generally, I think it reflects this sense of urban alienation. So all of these male characters are somewhat in their own world when they smoke or when they drive or when they do this particular zone. And it's alienation. And I think by tapping on that sense of emotions that has not been discussed, particularly for men, men and depressions, men and or feeling not fit in and alienation, it allowed people to talk about it by not talking about themselves, but talking about the characters. And within Thailand, it became a hashtag and a phenomenon using Wong Kar-wai filters, Instagram filter that has this kind of moody character and sepia and highly expressive color to talk about how we are in such repressed country that we all turn into these Wong Kar-wai-esque universe. So it's a whole like hashtag of กระทำความ Wong or being Wong. I think we can be being Ryan Gosling, so it kind of reflects the sentiments of being in this urban alienation or political repression in terms of Thailand. Yeah, so that's my kind of take on, I think, that reflection. Yeah.
I have a different take on this. And I think that has to, and it's not just Ryan, not just Ryan Gosling. You see that with Pedro Pascal, for example, playing the father role, even though he's the complete opposite. And Ryan Gosling, as I understand it, is the complete opposite of the sort of antisocial kind of brooding characters. He's done comedy, like, for example, in Barbie, very well. And I think there's a sense that with the state of how Hollywood is, for example, there's a neoliberal expectation that even now celebrities, when they promote a character or a particular film, it extends to their social media platforms as well. So they play that character off screen, and in the sort of non-diegetic sense, I guess, to kind of borrow a film term, that they start to embrace it. And I think sometimes for fans, it becomes, not to say that it's difficult for them to divorce the celebrity image and the character, but I think, again, it's about representation. It's about wanting to see a version of themselves. It's kind of like the embodiment approach. But from a representation perspective, fans want to see a part of themselves, or the ideal version of themselves, being represented through their favorite celebrities and through the characters that they play. And I think it goes both ways. The kind of the neoliberalist expectation of Hollywood for these celebrities to extend playing their characters beyond the screen to their social media platforms says something also about the way that fans would then expect similarly out of their celebrities. You see that a lot. I see it a lot when fans are now pressuring a lot of their favorite celebrities to come out and take a stand on the Israel-Palestine kind of position. They just want to know. And then if you kind of dig a bit further, they just said, they have a huge platform. We just want to know that they are standing on the correct side of history, because we want our ideas and our ideology and our beliefs to be confirmed by these celebrities who we see, in a way, sort of represent ourselves. So that's just sort of from a representation perspective, in a way.
That's very cool. Somebody told me the other day that there was this difference between, back in the day, people want to go see the film to see something new, something different, but now they go see the film because they want to see themselves. And it's also kind of social media era in which want to see others, we want to see ourselves, and again reflecting the beliefs and highlighting what did you believe in as a person as well as a star. I agree.
Okay, thank you very much, Bertha and Tan. Unfortunately, we don't have any more time. It's already up. Time is already up. Thank you very much. Please give a big applause virtually to Dr. Bertha Chin and Dr. Wikanda Promkhuntong. And now it's Indonesian thing, group photo. As the Rakesh, please.
It's okay. It's the Malaysian thing too.
It's Asian thing.
No photo. I didn't have.
Hello.
Okay.
Okay.
33 slides.
Yes, 33 pages.
Pages. Okay.
Okay. First one. Okay, now second. Third page. And fourth. Fifth. Sixth.
Yeah, please open the
7.
video.
8. 9. 10. 11. 12. 13.
Okay, halfway to go.
14. Now we're 15. 16. 17. 18. 19. 20. 13 to Google. 21. 22. 23, 24, 25,
Wih.
26, 27, 28, 29, 30,
Nah, 3 more to go.
31, 32, and last page, 33.
Okay. Thank you very much. And this is the exit ticket that you are
Oh, yeah,
looking for.
exit. Exit.
Just it's okay. I just share this one. This one, please. I give you 3 minutes ya to 1 minute aja deh to scan or just click the link that I just drop in comment section. While we are waiting for the students to fill in exit ticket, I would like to say thank you for Dr. Bertha and Dr. Wikanda Promkhuntong as our guest lecturers. I hope we can do any other collaboration in the near future. Thank you.
Thank
And,
you.
okay, that's
Thank you.
thank you.
The
Yeah,
content, no one else is talking about it.
Thank you.
thank you. And I have some for Berta and Tan. I have a project with Kasia. Probably you can join. I will email both of you for the project.
Okay.
It's yeah, special edition. It's academic thingy.
Okay. Yeah, no,
Okay, thank you.
yeah,
Okay, go
okay.
ahead.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So, we will
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Yeah, I'll email.
Okay. Thank you. For the ones who cannot itu ke sini deh. Thank you ya, just keep in touch ya. For the students who cannot open, bisa nggak? Cannot login. Mana sih? Aduh. Bentar ya, sebentar ya, sebentar. Bentar saya cek. Coba dicek yang itu. Loginnya dengan itu, dengan email dan passwordnya Binus. Bentar, bentar. Masih banyak ya? Masih 500. Oh iya, betul, betul, betul. Enggak, udah rekrutmen kok nih. Bentar. Bentar ya, ini kok nggak bisa saya. Atau Rakes tolong bikinin Rakes. Ini deh. Ntar saya login dulu sebentar, login lagi. Ini, kok completed sih? Bukan itu. Masih kok rekrutmen. Ya, elah. Ntar ya, ini soalnya baru ini.
Permisi Pak, ini tinggal
Ya,
join eventnya aja kan Pak?
iya join event aja.
Oh oke oke, sudah. Makasih ya Pak. Thank you.
Makasih. Nah itu yang pada bisa tuh. Coba.
Habis join event boleh live ya Pak?
Iya, bentar. Oke, silakan. Masuk nggak bisa. Aduh. Kalau loading terus, ini ganti kalau loading terus ini, kalau loading terus ganti browser atau incognito mode, ya. Tuh. Coba Rakes, Rakes, tolong dicek. Kamu bisa nggak kamu, Rakes?
Ya, saya dari tadi masih loading juga, Sir.
Nah, coba kamu ganti itu deh. Udah habis join, udah. Ganti ke browser atau jadi
Ya.
incognito.
Oke, saya coba ganti dulu.
Iya, iya, kalau udah join udah. Soalnya yang di situ sih. Soalnya maaf, maaf ya ini soalnya baru. Crowdbase-nya baru. Ini saya tungguin tuh.
Saya udah bisa, Sir. Udah bisa masuk. Pakai
Kamu udah bisa belum?
browser, pakai browser, ganti browser tadi.
Sudah.
Udah bisa masuk.
Sudah bisa cara gimana tadi? Coba kamu
Saya
itu
juga,
deh.
saya
Kamu
juga
share screen
pakai.
deh.
Oke.
Kamu ganti browser atau ke incognito nggak?
Saya ganti browser ke Safari doang, Sir.
Oh, ke Safari coba. Mungkin kalau Safari berarti pakai kamu pakai handphone ya?
Nggak pakai laptop, Sir.
Coba
Pak,
pakai Safari.
join udah boleh keluar kah?
Iya,
Oke Pak.
habis join dong. Kamu joinnya di mana? Coba kasih tahu.
Oh, saya dari Chrome Pak.
Hah?
Saya tinggal klik aja
Ya.
join gitu.
Joinnya di mana?
Di kayak di member enroll join gitu kalau saya.
Enggak.
Gitu. Ya wes, thank you ya Pak.
Thank you. Yang udah bisa silakan. Kalau yang belum bisa, coba ke browsernya pindah atau incognito. Gitu. Tuh, pakai incognito bisa. Pakai Brave. Tuh. Kalau nggak di ini dulu nih di kopas dulu ke tempat lain.
Udah ya, Pak. Makasih, Pak.
Udah, makasih.
Pak, mau nanya Pak, kalau
Ya,
misalnya ini udah pencet join, terus habis itu diapain lagi nih Pak?
udah. Nanti saya akan proses S1 poinnya.
Oke, baik Pak. Makasih banyak ya Pak.
Maaf Pak, saya mau
Ya.
nanya. Jadi tadi kan setelah pencet join event itu di bawahnya ada join role. Itu dipencet atau enggak?
Join role apa sih katanya?
Kalau kalau yang tampilan di atasnya tuh udah muncul join event, nanti bawahnya tuh bakalan ada buat join role gitu.
Join role-nya partisipan ya?
Iya.
Iya, join role, participation,
Pak, tapi
partisipan ya.
tadi
Nah.
udah join tapi masih
Loading.
loadingnya lama.
Atau
Iya,
gini aja
loading.
deh, Rakes bikinin itu dong. bikinin di Excel. Jadi NIM, nama lengkap sama jurusan. Terus kasih ke sini, tapi jadi hanya yang linknya.
Oke.
Ya gitu aja, ntar biar ini aja.
Oh, Pak, ini masih login deh.
Iya,
Masih
ntar.
login di ini itu.
Ini pencet join event aja ya Pak tadi ya Pak?
Join itu partisipan juga kalau nggak salah.
Ya join event terus partisipan gitu.
Iya,
Nah, are you sure? Oke.
ya.
Ntar. Nah, ini lagi joining call.
Ya udah sih itu mana sih siapa namanya?
Nah, udah Pak, udah tadi. Oke,
Ah,
makasih Pak.
ya. Si sapi kan masih ada 366 nih. Rakes tolong bikinin ya. Ya, sabar.
Ya, saya lagi dibikin nih,
Ya.
Wifi-nya agak.
Baik Pak, saya sudah bisa Pak.
Ya, silakan leave.
Terima kasih Pak.
Terima kasih. Sebagian udah, Pak.
Pak,
Ya.
kalau udah join, terus di bagian partisipan role-nya udah ada nama saya itu kayak di gambar di chat itu udah kan Pak?
Udah.
Udah.
Ya.
Jadi poinnya tinggal tunggu aja.
Iya, nanti sih.
Oh, oke, ya. Kasih ya Pak.
Makasih. Yang penting udah join role, join role ya. Join role ya, join event, join role.
Oke, ya.
Oke.
Kasih.
Rakes. Mana Rakesnya?
Udah, Sir.
Udah, kirim dong
Kirim
itunya.
aja. Spreadsheet ya.
Nah, itu tuh. Isi manual di sini sekarang. Nanti Rakes tolong 15.30 itu ya. Linknya jangan di-share lagi, jadi biar ya hanya ini doang.
Oke.
Iya, bisa. Oke.
Oh ya, bentar. Masih read only ya ini.
Nggak apa-apa.
Ya, ntar mereka nggak bisa ini.
Nggak sekarang nggak
Nggak.
apa-apa, nanti jam 4 deh, jam 4 di ini. Oh, shitnya kok read only nih.
Makanya mau Oh ininya, oh, sorry, bentar.
Baik, Pak. Saya sudah ya. Permisi, saya
Ya,
pamit.
makasih.
Mas juga,
Ini ya.
Pak.
Pak, Pak,
Ya,
ini Crowdbase saya masih login deh. Saya udah coba terus. Saya udah coba tunggu, masih nge-lag.
ya kan ada itu tuh dari si Rakes. Tuh
Mau link
Rakes
baru.
tuh Google Docs sudah bisa belum Google Docs?
Udah saya tadi udah tuh open
Udah,
access. Ya tuh udah tuh.
everybody with this link can access ya.
Ya,
Nama mani sama jurusan dong.
lanjut
Udah
juga.
kosong.
Sama-sama.
Ya, tambahin satu lagi ya.
Oke. Ya,
Oke, udah bisa nih. Saya nggak belum bisa sih.
udah poster udah pada bisa edit ini. Udah banyak yang edit.
Udah ya.
Udah Bang.
Oke, gini. Nanti saya ingetin jam 4 ditutup ya linknya ya. Yang
Oke.
di enggak udah bisa sekarang. Najibah udah bisa. Tapi aku belum bisa nih, gimana ya? Aku belum bisa nih.
Ada link yang baru. Udah saya kirim tadi.
Mana? Bentar.
Silakan aja.
Ini karena ini masih baru jadinya begini. Oh, ini ya. Coba yang baru tuh. Oh, udah banyak nih. Tapi sih belum bisa juga. The tools might be unavailable due to heavy traffic. Ya udah, berarti sayanya.
Banyak yang ini sir, banyak yang lagi di
Ya udah
spreadsheet.
gini aja. Buat teman-teman nih, silakan di copy paste dulu ya, yang di Google Docs atau yang di Crowdbase. Nanti dicoba lagi. Saya buka sampai besok deh. Tuh ya. Aman ya? Ya, yang di Docs. Jadi nanti aja kok minggu. Nanti sejam lagi dicoba lagi. Oke, jadi jangan khawatir.
Pak, kalau udah join partisipan udah bisa ya?
Ya, silakan. Ini Crowdbase tuh. Kalau ada yang Crowdbase deh. Join event dulu, baru join participant. Nah, udah mulai dikit. Kalau nggak bisa, link yang Crowdbase sama link yang Docs Google itu, kamu copy paste ke tempat lain, nanti sejam lagi
Ya, coba lagi.
dicoba lagi. Kayaknya Crowdbase lebih gampang, lebih lancar. Nah, itu.
Tuh, kayak sama
Tuh,
Jason.
terima kasih Jason. Tolong jangan sebar-sebar linknya ya.
Sir Ekky, kalau
Ya,
udah masuk di Crowdlist itu nggak perlu lagi didaftar ya?
nggak usah. Crowdbase
Ya.
udah sampai join participant kan?
Oke, thank you, sir.
Ya, makasih. Langsung aja silakan live kalau udah. Oke. Oke ya, saya ini ya, ada yang bertanya lagi nggak? Saya mau itu ini.
Hi sir, thank you.
Thank you. Tolong jangan di-share ya linknya. Oke ya. Jadi silakan. Saya kasih waktu satu. Saya ke toilet dulu. Setelah itu saya itu ya. Kalau saya apa namanya the end for all ya. Silakan kalau belum berhasil yang ini nih, yang dari Jason Natalim nih di copy paste. Jadi kalau sekarang susah, trafficnya tinggi, mungkin silakan itu ya, silakan di copy paste ke tempat lain. Nanti sejam lagi dicoba lagi. Oke, saya masih sampai besok, saya tunggu. Ya, makasih. Oke ya, halo, aman ya?
Belum Sar, ini masih udah
Halo.
bikin mimpi buruk atau enggak?
Kalau yang belum berhasil, itu yang punya jasa Natalim itu di copy paste ya, yang linknya. Proudbiz atau dok, oke?
Udah Pak, tapi ini join
Saya N ya,
partisipan
N for all.
gimana nih?
Masih.